everybody. It is the Desert Viking. I'm coming to you shortly after the elections have concluded, several days afterwards, actually. And I wanted to do a little talk about emotions, controlling your emotions, politics, and Freemasonry. So, really, to begin, we'll start from the Freemasonic standpoint here of controlling the emotions. You get right into the meat of the issue, right? And we are taught as entered apprentices in the very beginning how important it is to curb our emotions, how important it is to keep a check, not destroy, not remove entirely, but to keep a check on our emotional state. And that's important because when you let your emotions run wild, you're going to say things that have a profound negative impact. You're going to do things that have a profound negative impact. And you're going to not be thinking clearly. There's another side to that as well. Part of what we are supposed to be is stewards and light bearers, or whatever word you want to use, examples to the community through works of charity and other things, other ways that we like to give back to the community. But the word charity doesn't just necessarily mean donating money or time to something. In fact, I would like any of you who are Freemasons to think back to your first degree and an important phrase that we were lectured upon, which is how important charity is towards all mankind. It's one of our duties as Freemasons is charity towards all mankind. Charity is a wide word that means several things. And again, not just giving money to the poor or donating your time, but that's also, we are supposed to be examples to the community. We are supposed to be examples to each other. We are supposed to be examples to mankind. And to be charitable to someone is to be empathetic with them. It is to try to bridge the divide between people and not enforce or cause the divide between people, between our country, between our neighbors. I would go so far as to say it's unmasonic to cause a divide between people. So what that means, of course, taunting people, mocking people, any of those things, those are not something that we should be celebrating. Now, political elections tend to bring the worst out of people. I don't like politics myself. I do my best to stay out of them as much as possible. I am an independent, center of the line. I don't adhere to political parties. I believe that political parties are part of the tumor that has grown from our culture over the last 50 or 60 years. That identity politics are responsible for a lot of anguish and hate in our country today. So participating in identity politics, to me, even as not, is just as me, is something I don't want to do. But particularly as a Freemason, I definitely don't want to do. Now, it's okay if, that's not saying you can't be political in that you don't have a side or an ideology or whatever. Of course you do. I have my own virtues and ideology. And that's not saying it's not okay to celebrate a political victory. Of course, that's okay. But what it's not okay to do is to act like the very people you are trying to oppose, who mock and belittle and tear down on the opposing side, your side. And also bearing in mind that in a lodge, that because we don't talk about politics, there are brothers in the lodge that are either political party. And that by openly mocking the losing side, you are causing a rift in the lodge as well. And I wanted to bring that up as the first thing to discuss. That we want to be an example. We want to try to heal or bridge the divide between our country, not make it worse. We are not militant. We need to bear in mind the things we put out into the world, and no one's perfect. I'm sure we can find many examples of myself slipping on that. But we want to be careful what we put out in the world. We want to be careful what words we use. These words have meaning, actions have meaning. And try to hold yourself at a higher standard. Now to the population in general. Freemason or not. The importance of curbing your emotions. I alluded to this earlier when I said that Freemasonry, especially in the beginning, in the first degree, the primary lesson of the first degree is the subdual of your emotions to master them. Mastering your emotions is crucial, and the lack of discipline in emotional behavior, emotional intelligence, we'll call it emotional intelligence, is very obvious. The lack of it is very obvious in this country, in the West in general. That we have allowed ourselves to be led around by our emotions, by the people who know how to manipulate and control those emotions. That we are so dead set on our political enemies, and I use that word intentionally because that is the state of things today. There can be no doubt that we view the opposite side as an enemy, and that I as an independent, and those who are independents like myself are seen as the enemy by the two primary sides. That to view people with differing opinions as an enemy, we have no future. We have no future going down that road. No country, no group of people has ever withstood such a division. And while there are those who would gleefully watch the country burn to the ground, it's not in their best interest to allow that to happen either. Every side has what they consider to be their moral stopping point. And I don't need to go over them. We know what they are from either side, that if you don't vote for my side, then that means you're anti-me and I hate you and you're not my friend. And politics are more nuanced than that for most people, for most normal people who aren't on the fringe, on the extreme sides of things. That we have to take in several things into account on the vote. And let's be honest. Voting, to me, anyhow, in my opinion, is an illusion. It's an illusion of choice. We are presented with candidates that we think we have a choice on, but we don't really. And I see both parties as two sides of the same coin. The overall general output or results are usually the same, with some minor differences in ideology. And what we need to do, instead of tearing at each other, is find the common ground between people. Because I guarantee you, we can find common ground with most anyone. But we choose to focus on the things that differentiate us. And that will continue to hold us back. And even sides, even if you think that if the other side were completely eradicated and wiped out, and you would have won that victory, I promise, and we've seen history has shown many times, that all that would happen is once you've defeated your political enemy, that the people in your collective would look into each other and find other things to find differences on, and then it begins again. It's a snake eating its own tail. It never stops. A lot of that is fed by emotional immaturity or the inability to master your emotions. And again, it's why it's so important as Freemasons that we master our emotions. But it's important as you, as a man or a woman, to master your emotions. Because otherwise you let other people manipulate you and lead you around by the nose like a clown. And that's the world today. So, if anything, pause and think for a moment. These outlandish statements, these extreme statements, most of them aren't even grounded in anything realistic. And try to get a hold of yourself and bring yourself back down and ground yourself a little bit. And if you want to continue to stay on the path of destruction and call for the death and destruction of your enemies, there is an important note, and I'm not a religious person, but I do know my holy texts pretty well. And this is an apt one, and it essentially is this: he who lives by the sword will die by the sword. He who calls for the death of their political enemies may themselves see that they are put to that end. And so by putting that out into the world, you are going to reap the karmic debt of your intention. And there are other ways that we need to go about doing things. We need to return to a grounding. We need to get out of this emotional state that we're in. And until we can do that, things are going to get a lot harder. And they've been getting a lot harder. Let's keep that in mind. Till next time, I hope you stay safe. And we will talk to you soon. Cheers for now.